I just want to say that your partner should not be your only support system. That you should have a plethora of support all around you, even if you choose to be monogamous. The fact that so many people are in these like domestic violence situations, leaning completely into this relationship that is pulling out the worst sides of them, is destroying who they are and who they could be. And I've personally been in this situation, so that's why it's so important to me. But I also see echoes of this situation all around me in dynamics in my family, and it's too common. And so this is just a point I'm trying to make to encourage people to be good friends to each other, to prioritize good friendships over jumping into intimate relationships that are romantic or sexual in nature. Um, but it's everybody chooses their own adventure. Just from my learning experience, the amount of trauma so many people have in this world, and then just being in this closed loop with another person where you're looping on the same issues all the time and tearing each other down a lot of the time is not conducive for growth. And I know it's shameful once you're in these dynamics to reach out for help or support or get out of them, but it is so worth it. And it's hard to disconnect sometimes because it seems like if we don't fix it or figure it out, we're forever going to be seen as those worser versions of ourselves that were alive in that connection. But I personally think that there is a path forward for most people if they choose to nourish those beautiful parts about themselves and find community and find that need outside of that codependent, avoidant spiral that so many of us find ourselves in. And if you don't resonate with this or you don't relate, maybe this could bring a little bit more empathy to those who struggle in these kinds of dynamics because it is very, very common. Um, whether it's monogamous or polyamorous relationships, there's a lot of shadows in the way that we relate with each other. And I personally have been deep in those shadows in the past, and I'm finding a better path forward. And I love the people in my life, but when I was in these closed loops where the worst of me was highlighted, it made the worst of me strengthen. And so I just really want to encourage other people to see the good in each other, see where the loops are occurring between, two or multiple parties that are like bringing out these shadows, but don't so quickly write people off. And collectively, I think we should be looking at the path towards rehabilitation after these cycles occur rather than trying to demonize or write one person off as bad and needs to be removed from society because these types of situations are so common and I've been around them my whole life. And so I'm just calling in more empathy and more structures to rehabilitate people like this, like myself, like those that I've been in connection with, to bring them more into the world and into community rather than staying in that closed loop of toxicity and highlighting the worst versions of ourselves. Um, that's something that I hope to help cultivate in the future going forward. And it's something that's super needed. And I'm just so grateful for the ways that people see the good in me and for the connections that I've had and the lessons that I've learned. But it's really been showing me over time that there's this idea of what a relationship should be that does not quite follow where human beings are at right now. Um, I personally am the best person when I'm in contexts where I'm not having to keep track of like somebody else like a partner, and what they're doing with their finances or how their life is. And that's an echo of like what capitalism is currently doing to us and how stressful it is and how people are barely scraping by. And that can lead to these unbalanced situations where it's hard to communicate clearly with all of these layers of stress on top of it. And so I just want to use my platform to kind of showcase different perspectives, and not get stuck in seeing people's shadows for all that they are, but encouraging the best versions of themselves and figuring out where people's needs are, where people's traumas are, and meeting them there and giving them the space to breathe. Um, because in the current landscape of our economic system and our news cycles, there isn't a lot of breathing room. Even, these beautiful events, like they cost money, and a lot of the times it's hard to travel to these places where there is this sense of community. But there are many people and many free events and free offerings. So if you're somebody who's needing the community, I encourage you to find that. And just as a structural issue, like we need more free rehabilitation centers for people who are dealing with trauma or addiction. Um, it's it's scarce. The medical system, when I was hospitalized, $2,300 a day to get mental health care in an inpatient setting. And I still like kind of think about that medical bill, and I think about the other medical bills that I will probably never get to pay. Um, and it's disheartening that that's the structure, that in order to get help, you're forever in debt. It has a certain something to it that I think prevents a lot of people from meaningfully healing, and people who need to seek the help from seeking the help, because we all know that the help is quite broken. So I think the power falls into our hands to help co-create these better structures and these better systems. And having the lived experience that I do, like constantly being around relational conflict, I really hope to help build these better systems and these better structures, because I could benefit greatly from them myself, but I've done pretty well despite it. But I see the other people who are probably suffering more than I am. I'm very blessed and grateful to be in the position that I'm in. And my heart really goes out to them, because if it wasn't for the certain cards that I played in life, I would probably be in a worse situation. And yeah, I just like, I fully acknowledge my impact and the role I've played in certain cycles, but it's hard to do that when you're forever condemned for doing so. And so I really think, I'm just gonna highlight this again, we need more structures forward for mediation that aren't so costly and so detrimental to whatever construct we have of how things should be done. More mediation over litigation, in my opinion. And mediation is also quite costly. Um, so here I am, making my videos of my thoughts to help me pay for costly things that shouldn't be so costly, to make sure I'm the best person that I can be. And I'm doing the best that I can. And much love to you guys. If you watched through the whole thing, I hope this is an inspiration to help co-create the much needed change in the world.